Hi, I'm Emily Quinn. And when I was 17, I found out that in my family, love had a line item. It was a humid August morning, the kind where the air sticks to your skin and the sky looks like it's about to crack open. But inside our house, the storm had already arrived. My mother burst into my room without knocking, waving a lease agreement in one hand and a calculator in the other like they were holy scripture. "Your sister found the perfect apartment downtown," she said, her voice sugar, laced but sharp. "She just needs a co-signer. That's gonna be you." I remember blinking. "I'm 17. From the hallway, my dad barked a laugh. "Exactly. No debt, clean credit. Banks love that." They talked over me like I was furniture. A credit score and sneakers. I hesitated. What if she doesn't pay? And that was it. The moment the cracks in the floor finally opened, my mother's smile peeled away like rotten wallpaper. "Don't be dramatic, Emily. This is about family." "Family," I shot back. "She's already maxed out 3 credit cards. In my name." My dad stormed into the room like a judge entering court. "You ungrateful brat. We feed you. We clothe you. And this is how you repay us. Playing the victim." "I'm not playing," I said, voice low. "But I won't ruin my future for her mistakes." The silence that followed didn't last long. By nightfall, I was gone. No goodbye, no argument. Just a single voicemail. "If you're too good for us, don't come back." I slept in my best friend Brianna's garage for 2 weeks. No heat, no bathroom, just a cracked air mattress, a space heater that tripped the fuse every night, and the terrifying thrill of freedom. But I didn't beg. I worked the graveyard shift at a 24-hour diner, pouring coffee for long, haul truckers while studying macroeconomics on grease-stained flashcards. I enrolled in community college and chased every scholarship I could find. I walked to class. I skipped meals. I hustled. Because I refused to be who they said I'd become. Nobody. And all the while, my sister uploaded filtered selfies from rooftop bars, hashtagging, "Hey blessed," while I wiped syrup off diner counters for tips. They kicked me out to keep her comfortable. That was just the beginning. I didn't see my parents for 4 years. Not a single text. Not a card on my birthday. Not even an email to pretend they cared. They had cut me out like a bad investment. But honestly, that silence was a gift. Because for the first time, I could hear myself think. I learned how to budget every dollar like it was sacred. I calculated the price of success in midnight shifts, caffeine shakes, and rejection emails from scholarships that went to more traditional applicants. I got a job at a small diner off the freeway. One of those places with cracked vinyl booths and the smell of burnt toast permanently baked into the walls. My regulars didn't know my story, but they tipped better than my parents ever did. Sometimes I'd see families come in. Dads flipping pancakes onto their kids' plates. Moms rubbing tired eyes but still smiling. And I'd wonder, was I really so wrong for saying no? For refusing to set myself on fire just to keep my sister warm? The first full ride I landed was to a small liberal arts college upstate. I cried in the diner bathroom when I got the email. Brianna brought me a cupcake with a candle in it. She called it my "no more begging" cake. I moved into a shared apartment with 3 other students who thought ramen was gourmet cuisine. I worked weekends at a bookstore. I wore secondhand blazers to class like armor. Every time I got a B+, I pushed harder for an A. Every time I ran out of rent money, I offered to close for double shifts. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. And then, just when I thought the past had fully let go of me, it walked right through the door. It was a Saturday lunch rush. I was back to waitressing on weekends to cover textbooks when I saw them. My parents. My mother wearing pearls like it was Sunday Mass. My dad walking like he owned the place. They didn't even look around, just sat in a booth and waited. I walked over, stiff with disbelief. Before I could even open my mouth, my mom slid a folded letter across the table like it was a coupon. "One need 22,000, she said, voice low but urgent. "For a car. Your sister needed something reliable." "A Mercedes?" I asked, reading the note. "Seriously, You owe her, my mom said without blinking. You walked out when she needed you. I looked at them, dressed, fed and oblivious, and I realized something. They hadn't come to reconnect. They'd come to collect. I was homeless, I said, my hands trembling. I slept in a garage. I ate crackers for dinner. And you? You look fine now, my dad cut in. You've always bounced back. And that was the moment I made a silent vow. They would never benefit from a single cent I earned. Not one. After that diner moment, I didn't cry. Not in the walk-in cooler. Not during my break behind the dumpsters. Not even when I scrubbed their untouched booth clean with shaking hands. I didn't cry because something colder than sadness had taken hold. Clarity. They hadn't changed, they never would. To them, I was still the emergency exit. The co-signer. The girl with clean credit and a soft heart. They thought they could walk back in after 4 years, name a number, and walk away with my future in their pockets again. But this time, I had a spine built from rejection letters and graveyard shifts. I walked out of that job 2 months later with an acceptance letter in my coat pocket. A full ride, tuition, books, housing, to one of the top finance programs in the country. All earned, all mine. I interned in offices where people wore real suits, not borrowed ones. I drank bad coffee with women who had carved empires from granite. I took notes like my life depended on it, because it did. The years that followed were brutal and beautiful. I couch surfed, worked weekends, and skipped every vacation. While my sister posted brunch pics in borrowed designer dresses, I learned what EBT day meant. While my parents pretended I didn't exist, I was quietly turning into someone they'd never recognize. By 25, I was working at a boutique aviation finance firm. By 28, I'd launched my own consultancy. By 30, I'd bought my first jet in cash, no loans, no debt, no co-signer, just me. The girl they threw out for saying no had just said yes to owning her sky. On the 11th anniversary of the night they left my suitcase on the porch, I came home, not to reconcile, to collect something they never gave me: respect. I didn't book a hotel. I flew in on my own aircraft. My name was on the sponsor board for the town's biggest fundraiser of the year. The same gym they'd told me I wasn't good enough to compete in was now covered in banners that said sponsored by Emily Quinn. I walked through those doors in a tailored white suit. Heels clicking, eyes forward. When they announced my name as the lead donor, I took the stage, looked out at the crowd, and finally met my parents' eyes. They were in the front row, and they weren't clapping. I didn't rush. I walked onto that stage with the grace of someone who had nothing left to prove and everything left to say. The spotlight warmed my shoulders. The mic hummed under my fingertips. I could hear whispers ripple through the gym, recognition, confusion, envy. But I wasn't there for them. I was there for every girl who ever got told she was too much, when all she did was protect herself. I looked out into the crowd, students, parents, alumni, and began. I grew up in this town, I said, steady and clear. I was told that family meant sacrifice. That saying no made you selfish. That love was proven by how much pain you could carry without complaint. I paused. People were leaning in now. My mother had gone pale. My father's jaw was locked. But the truth is, love without respect is just control. And obedience isn't loyalty, it's silence. My voice didn't waver. I said no when I was 17. And I lost everything, my home, my security, my parents. But I gained something they never expected. I turned to the crowd of teens in plastic chairs, kids like I once was. I gained myself. The applause was thunderous, except for 2 people, my parents. They sat frozen as if applause was a foreign language. After the event, I barely had time to step off stage before they cornered me. That speech, my mother started, voice trembling. It was dramatic. Thanks, I smiled. It was honest. You embarrassed us, my dad growled. You disowned me when I was 17, I replied. Then came back years later asking for money for a Mercedes. It wasn't even new. My mother scoffed like that made it better. I blinked. Do you hear yourself? She deflected. We're behind on the house. Your father's pension. I raised a hand. No. Her eyes widened. We thought maybe now that you're doing well, you could float us, Dad finished. I didn't laugh. Not because it wasn't laughable, but because it wasn't surprising. You made your choice 11 years ago, I said, voice like steel. You chose her comfort over my safety, and now you're broke. Not sorry? You're our daughter, my mother whispered, reaching for me. No, I said, stepping back. I was your backup plan. And now I'm your last resort. They didn't say anything for a long moment. Just stood there, mouths slightly open, like they were realizing, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't going to fold. I wasn't 17 anymore. No curfew, no trembling hands, no cracked suitcase on the porch. Just me standing tall in a suit they couldn't afford, even if they sold the house. And they were about to lose that too. 3 days later, the paperwork arrived at their doorstep. A notice from a law office. They were being evicted. The house they were desperate to save. It had quietly gone into foreclosure months ago. They hadn't told anyone. Tried to buy time. But the mortgage had defaulted, and the new owner, a shell company, owned by me. I hadn't planned it that way. Not at first. But when the opportunity crossed my desk, when I saw the address and realized fate had delivered it, I took it. Not to hurt them. To finally protect the girl they threw away. They called me. Of course they did. Called from new numbers. Used email accounts I didn't recognize. Left voicemails that started angry and ended begging. But I didn't respond. I didn't block them either. Let them hear the silence they left me in for years. 30 days came and went. And on the 31st, they stood on the lawn with suitcases that looked a lot like mine had all those years ago. My mother glared at the front door like it had betrayed her. But it hadn't. It just didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to the woman she'd underestimated, who now had marble countertops and a custom security system and zero tolerance for guilt. And just when they thought it was over, when they believed I'd disappear again, richer and colder than ever, I did something they didn't see coming. I sent them a card, a thick black envelope, hand-delivered gold lettering, inside one note, the Quinn Center for Abandoned Youth, opening soon, fully funded by Emily Quinn, in loving memory of second chances. There was a space reserved for them, not in the shelter, but in the volunteer office. You want help? Start helping someone else. Maybe then, I thought, they'd learn what it feels like to be useful without being used. They never replied to the envelope. Not a thank you. Not a curse. Not even a returned letter. But a month later, I got an alert from the center's director. 2 new volunteers had shown up, older, tired, looking unprepared. They signed in under fake names. But I didn't need a signature to recognize them. They cleaned floors, sorted clothes, served food to kids who looked too much like I once did. And for the first time in their lives, they gave without expecting something back. It wasn't redemption. That would take more than shifts at a shelter. But it was a start. I didn't watch from a distance. I didn't show up to make a scene. I had nothing left to prove. The house they once owned was now an emergency shelter for girls aged 16 to 21. The kitchen I once scrubbed with tears now served warm meals every night. The attic had been renovated into a study lounge. There was a scholarship fund, too, all in my name. But this wasn't about my name. This was about the girl who once cried herself to sleep on a cracked air mattress in Brianna's garage. The one who thought surviving meant staying quiet. Now, she had a building with her name etched in stone, and a future filled with her own choices. On the anniversary of that first eviction, when I was 17 and alone, I did something small and personal. I drove past the gas station where I'd once sat all night with no place to go. I parked in the same spot. But this time, I wasn't scared. I wasn't waiting for someone to pick me up. I wasn't begging to be seen. I rolled down the window, let the breeze in, and whispered, "You made it." No applause. No crowd. Just peace. Because healing isn't loud. It's not the jet or the blazer or the lawyer's letter. Healing is walking past your past and not flinching. Healing is building a life so strong. The people who tried to break you can't even recognize the foundation. If you've ever been told you owe your silence in exchange for love, if you've ever been punished for saying no, if you've ever been kicked out for choosing yourself, let Emily's story remind you, being thrown away doesn't mean you're worthless. Sometimes, it just means you're too valuable to stay somewhere small. This story was written exclusively for our channel. Telling story with me. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment with one word you wish someone had said to you when you needed it most. Subscribe for more real stories of strength, healing, and unforgettable comebacks. You're not alone here. And if no one's told you yet today, you deserve better. And it's not too late to start.